about a topic that is very important and one that, as the Democratic caucus in the House and the Senate, we've been fighting against for years, really since before I got to the legislature, and that was 10 years ago. This is one of the issues I think that we've researched and studied other states and really kind of delved deep into the policy, and that is the school voucher program. So in Tennessee, as you all know, that program was first passed, focusing specifically on Nashville and Memphis. It was deemed to be constitutional last legislative session. We added 2 additional cities. Now the governor is proposing to make this statewide, which is a complete break in the promise to make sure that we have well-funded public schools in Tennessee, that every kid, no matter what zip code they were born in, no matter where they live, has the right to a free and strong and effective public education. And one that has standards that make sure that it's performing, that the students are doing better in that school than they would be if they were not in that school. We've had a long bipartisan tradition of making sure that our schools are accountable, that our kids are taking testing to make sure that they are high performing, that we are teaching to standards that the students are tested on. And with this expansion, this idea to allow this program to be statewide, schools will not have to adhere to those standards. They will not have to have the same types of licensing and curriculum and accountability. And if this was just a private school, okay. If you as a parent choose to send your child there with your own money and you want them to get education that is inferior to a traditional public school, by all means. But we are talking about public dollars, taxpayer dollars going to private institutions. And as we've looked at other states that have implemented these programs, from Indiana, Florida, Wisconsin, Louisiana, Arizona, there are 3 things we've noticed. One, the kids in those schools do not perform at the same level as their counterparts in public schools. As a matter of fact, they perform more poorly. 2, we've seen situations of rife fraud where parents and families are potentially abusing these dollars. And 3, we've seen a system that continues to expand, one that in some ways overtakes the public school, where private schools are raising their tuition to match the state dollars so that they can continue to get more dollars, where private schools are expanding and coming to a particular state just so that they can tap into these public dollars. At the end of the day, we as a caucus want to make sure that our kids are educated, that they have the tools they need to not only succeed in their communities and in Tennessee, but on a global level. And that is what happens when you fully fund a public school. And doing and passing programs like the voucher program the governor is proposing today does the exact opposite of that. And so that's why we stand united as a House and Senate to fight against this expansion. And I'm fairly certain when you look at the very narrow margin the original legislation passed, you will find this is a bipartisan issue. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Senate Caucus Chair London Lamar.
Thank you, Leader Agberry. I want to take y'all back to a time back in 2019. It was my first year in the legislature. And we were on the House floor today of the voucher vote. And then Speaker Cassida held the floor up for 40 minutes to pull on the arm of legislators who knew this program was not good for Tennessee students. They held up the floor for 40 minutes to pass this bill that would take taxpayer money to fund private institutions. Vouchers are a scam. They steal public tax dollars from our neighborhood schools and give them to wealthy families, create a coupon system for their private school tuition. What we've seen is an opportunity to separate rich families from poor families. What I will see in my district is private schools increasing the cost of their tuition in order to keep certain students out who get this voucher program. This program is for middle-class families who do not want to pay the full price of tuition for private institutions. Right now, roughly 91% of our school system are students in public school. 91%. Right now, we are the bottom 10 of the nation in school funding for our children. We are already not doing a good job of funding the children we have in our public school system. And now we're allocating additional money so that we can use for private schools when our public schools are in need of the investment. It's so interesting. The other day, we had committee hearings on the impact of rejecting federal funds, which would be over $1 billion deficit a year for our public school system if we reject federal funds. Now, if we got over $100 million to allocate to vouchers with a $1 billion investment deficit if we reject federal funds, public schools students will suffer. But that also lets us know we had the money to invest in more programs, more tutoring opportunities, more after school programs, more rehabilitation programs, more conflict resolution programs for children. But we're giving that money, that taxpayer money, to private institutions who have no accountability to that money. Private schools can take voucher money and pick and choose what children they want. They can decide if they want to accept the children based on their disability, based on their race, their socioeconomic class, or their religious status. What you will see is churches opening up schools just to collect voucher money. Also, how will these students be selected? How are the 20,000 voucher coupons going to be allocated across the state? What county gets what number of vouchers? Are private schools obligated to accept these students who receive vouchers? Are they prevented from increasing their tuition costs in order to allow some families to take advantage of this program or not? This is not actually a bipartisan fight, even though you see House Democrats and Senate Democrats standing up here together. This is about working families across Tennessee, both rural and urban, who are getting gypped by a system and their money going towards corporations who want to open up schools. This is a scam. This is an injustice to the Tennessee families who work hard, who are struggling every day. This is injustice to the local governments who got to fill that funding gap already if we reject those federal funds. This is going to be on the taxpayers whose property taxes are going to increase in addition to their tax money going to private schools. Those students in voucher programs are not performing any better than students in public school systems. In our Constitution, it is written in our Constitution that we must fully fund our education system in Article 11, Section 12. But this voucher program goes directly against that when we are not fully funding our schools already and we're giving that money to private schools. We got to do better as a legislature. We cannot support Governor Lee's voucher plan. We passed the bill for this to be a 3-year pilot program. They only use 1 year. Why don't we wait to see if this pilot program actually works before we expand it after 1 year? And in that 1 year has already shown the students in Tennessee in this pilot program are not doing better than any kids in our public school system. We are investing in strategies that do not work. We are wasting taxpayer money. With that being said, I pass it over to Representative John Ray Clemens, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus.
Thank you, Senators. Appreciate y'all's leadership on this issue and joining our House Caucus members in this fight for Tennessee's students, because that's why we care so much. That's why we're all here as far as Tennessee children and students across the entire state in all 95 counties. So let's call it what it is. As Senator Lamar said, this is a scam. This voucher scam is only the latest step in Governor Bill Lee and the GOP supermajority's strategic and purposeful undermining of Tennessee's public education system. Now, you hear a lot of talk about saving kids from failing public schools. But if any public school in Tennessee is failing, it's because the same special interest funded politicians pushing vouchers today have demonized, weakened, and drastically underfunded those public schools. Let's look at the facts and the GOP's record of education policy over the last decade alone. Since Tennessee was reported to be the fastest improving state in education in the nation in 2013. Tennessee ranks 46th in the nation now for education spending per student. We spend 30% less on our students than the national average. Tennessee ranks around 42nd for public teacher salary. In January 2020, TASER reported that we underfund public education by $1.7 billion per year. Lee and the Republicans have systematically removed decision-making from the classroom and the local level with a series of laws. The State Charter School Commission allows political appointees at the state, all of whom are rife with conflicts of interest, to override locally elected school officials. Bills like the third grade retention law remove all input from teachers actually in the classroom about a child's progress or proficiency in any given subject, specifically reading. Lee and Republicans have bastardized the ASD, or Achievement School District, using it as an excuse for the state to take over schools, privatize them, and produce no better student outcomes. Lee and Republicans have intentionally demonized librarians and teachers with laws to ban books, even suggesting that we burn them on the House floor, and other false narratives around CRT and allegations of brainwashing. Lee and Republicans ran through a TISA funding formula that facilitates the flow of taxpayer money from public schools to private corporations. Rather than addressing the root causes of teacher retention, Lee and Republicans have passed laws allowing basically anyone with little to no educational training to have a temporary teacher's permit. Lee and Republicans have recently assigned letter grades that are being assigned to schools based on test scores in the subject areas that those same untrained temporary teachers are teaching. Lee and Republicans have recently pitched the idea of rejecting billions in annual federal education funding that actually protects and supports low-income and special needs students, essentially proposing to double bill Tennessee taxpayers for the same underfunded schools with less services and protections. Now they want to pass a statewide voucher bill that would further drain precious resources from our schools. Why? Well, for the reasons and some of the false narratives you've heard my colleagues talk about. Vouchers don't equal school choice or educational freedom. Private schools get to choose their students, not the other way around. They don't have to accept anyone or provide any services like transportation or accessibility to all students. Vouchers don't give parents more rights. Parents actually give up many of their rights when they go or send their child to private school. Vouchers don't increase competition between public schools and private schools. Public and private schools aren't on the same playing field with respect to serving students or accountability standards. Vouchers don't save kids from failing schools. I've already blown a hole in that narrative. Vouchers don't improve educational outcomes for students, as my colleague said. Across numerous states, over a long period of time, there is zero statistical evidence that voucher programs improve overall student success or improve test scores, which our state loves to use as its main accountability metric. Ultimately, as I said, what Governor Bill Lee's proposing today is a scam. Nothing more. Let's call it what it is. School vouchers are a scam to divert precious tax dollars away from our local schools, your local schools, and into private schools that are unaccountable to taxpayers and are not required to serve all students. He's proposing to rip off Tennessee taxpayers simply to subsidize private school education for his wealthy friends and the wealthy few, all the while pillaging money from local public schools that serve the vast majority of Tennessee's children. Now, whereas TISA ensured that all 95 counties were going to have to raise property taxes and will taxes in the next few years, fiscally irresponsible proposals like rejecting education funds from the federal government and adopting a statewide voucher plan that'll blow a multi-billion-dollar hole in our annual budget will simply mean that those inevitable tax increases, those property taxes and wheel tax increases you're going to see in every county are only going to be even higher. And right here, right now, I want every county commissioner and school board official and county mayor across all 95 counties of this state who will be staring down the barrel of a significant budgetary shortfall in the next few years and trying to figure out how to scrape every dime together to figure out how to keep their public schools doors open, to know exactly who to thank for that predicament. Governor Bill Lee and the GOP supermajority, they're Republican state legislators. Thank you.
I hate correcting my Senate colleagues anytime because they're usually just always on point. But they both said the voucher bill passed. Let's make it very clear. The voucher bill did not pass. The voucher bill was purchased on the balcony of the Tennessee House. For the 43 minutes that Lancaster kept the board open, they brought state troopers in, blocked us from going out on the balcony, used the sergeant of arms to block us from the door to go out on the balcony. And two gentlemen who are now federally indicted, both were on their phone talking to someone, I don't know who, about what they could offer to get some more votes. So let's make it abundantly clear, the voucher bill was purchased. It should not be law in this state. It's a farce. So they bring this first voucher bill, and it was to help the poor kids that are in failing schools. We're going to help those poor kids. We're going to give those poor kids $7,500 to go to an average cost of a private school in Nashville is around $15,000. So we're going to give them half amount of money. It's no transportation to get those schools. Most of these kids' parents are having to work multiple jobs to make ends meet, so they don't have time to take them across town to this private school. It's all a farce. You know, the law in and of itself says the voucher can go to a district that has a failing school, not just to the kids who are in a failing school. So it was never meant for those kids that are in some poor failing school. You know, if it was a poor failing school, maybe they would fully fund education for once in this state instead of trying to give up nearly $2 billion a year. So again, this scam came out of criminality, and I'm certain criminality will again be involved this time in trying to pass it. And I'm just hoping that some federal officials will finally come in and assist us in this state. Thanks.
Questions?
Anybody have questions?
In Texas, recently, a coalition of Democrats and rural Republicans beat back a voucher plan despite a lot of arm twisting from Governor Abbott. What is your plan? What is your strategy for trying to do the same?
So, like I mentioned earlier, this is not a partisan issue. This is a bipartisan issue. And if you could see back in 2019, Democrats and rural Republicans were unified already in opposing this bill. Again, the pilot program for vouchers passed by one vote, in which the floor was held up. And like Representative Mitchell said, it was bought. So I think we need to re-engage those legislators who were already skeptical of this program, and we need to come together and push back and say something. We need to draft legislation to end this pilot program and also continue to challenge these things in the courtroom.
And when these rural legislators figure out the school system in most of these counties is the largest employer in most of these counties, and when their teachers figure out they're trying to take their jobs from them, I'm certain their phones and emails are going to get lit up a little bit.
And in addition, I think that it's important that we come together with our local elected officials, like Chairman John Ray Clemens said, in regards to expressing to citizens and our local agencies the true deficit this particular program is going to cause, and making sure they can come up here and express the impact it will have on our counties, so that legislators know if you vote for this program or continue to support this program, you're hurting people and voters on the local level, and most importantly, our children.
Yeah, I was just saying on the House side, we're already reaching out to local officials and others who join us, regardless of political party, in supporting public schools, really supporting public schools, and encouraging them and sharing information with them, showing how this is going to detrimentally impact them, how this is going to result in tax increases, how this is going to really affect children and cost their county jobs. So we were already making those calls and attempting to get them to reach out to their Republican state legislators to educate them and inform them about their concerns, which are real. This is all rooted in fact. This isn't just opposition for opposition's sake. This is a real issue that's going to have a direct detrimental impact on these children and counties across Tennessee, not to mention the future economy of the entire state.
I had a question. So the first year they're talking about up to 20,000, but then after that the cap comes off and it can be sky's the limit. Is that do I understand that correctly? Can you?
That's our understanding. They want to blow the lid off entirely. What's going to be interesting to see is, if you notice last year, they somehow tried to and successfully skirted a fiscal note on expanding that program to Hamilton County. I don't know how you skirt a fiscal note on expanding a voucher program, but we'll see what procedural tricks they try to use this year to that end.
And again, let's already, don't forget to add that in the first year of this pilot program, the Tennessee already reported that test scores for students using this voucher system show participants perform lower than their public school peers. So we already know that so far this program isn't working and it's not improving the educational outcome for students who are participating in this program. What this is a coupon program for rich families who do not want to pay the full price of tuition at private schools across the state of Tennessee. It is not working. It's not working in other states. It's an investment in failed strategies. Understand the bottom line, our data shows this does not work. And it is a fact we're putting more money in programs that do not work.
You mentioned property taxes going up. In Indiana, the flip side is they've seen a lot of program cuts, elective cuts. Do you think people need to be made aware of the sacrifices school districts are going to have to make as a result of this money leaving the district?
Well, it's the same with any time you blow a hole in a budget voluntarily like that. You're going to have to make tough decisions. They're either going to make cuts, they're going to lay off teachers, they're going to end sports programs like high school football, or they're going to take the harder path and raise taxes, which none of them want to do. So neither path is attractive to these local officials, but I think it's very important to let them know who is putting them in the position of having to make that tough decision. You know, if you want to end high school football, support the voucher program. It's that easy.
You know, I also want to add, I'm representing Memphis, Tennessee, and in my particular district, I'm dealing with a high crime issue among juveniles. Well, in a city that's already experienced decades of disinvestments, whose school programs are already ending, whose children are constantly looking for something to do to invest in them in their education, because we've been underfunded, we're going to now underfund them even more. There's more kids going to be out on the street. There's more kids that's going to be getting in trouble. There's more kids who are not going to be prepared for college. There's more kids who are not going to be prepared for the workforce because of the impact of this program. So we're already seeing the impact of disinvestment in our education system with the crime that we're experiencing in our city. All we're going to do is further increase that because we are constantly not giving our institutions the support they need in order to groom the next generation of Tennesseans in this state. It is so interesting. My colleagues in Shelby County who are going to be supporting this program are the main ones complaining about crime, our officials, what we need to be doing. But this is a one opportunity where they can say their vote will make a positive impact on reducing youth crime, reducing issues in our community, but then they won't do it. So I want us to remember the faces of the people who are making decisions that are directly impacting our communities in the most negative way. And you can see right now what's going on in Memphis and across the state with juveniles, what disinvestment looks like.
And why should we trust these people with this latest scam? their previous scam was the charter scam, and it worked out so well that Tennessee's charter schools are at the bottom in the nation. So why would we trust them with another education scam?
I'll just add that I think you have to ask to what end is all this designed, and why, as Senator Lamar kind of alluded to, why is this Governor Bill Lee's #1 legislative initiative this year? We have all these other problems they love to talk about, and then we have real problems. We got DCS children, still out there in a world of hurt because of mismanagement of an entire state department. You got real issues facing the people of Tennessee. Tennessee families have challenges, and this is Bill Lee's #1 legislative initiative. What's going on? And you have no data to support the entire scheme? I think Tennessee taxpayers deserve answers to that very question. Why this? Why now?
We could have given them coupons on food, something that families really need. Use that money towards something that really matters, like expand the grocery tax freeze. We could have used the money for that, but instead, this is a coupon system for rich people, not the families that actually need it the most.
You all mentioned coalition building with local officials, but what will you do here in the legislature to try to pick off some members to try to block this?
Well, regardless of what you might think or how it might appear, we actually work across the aisle quite often, and we have productive conversations with some of our colleagues who are willing to have adult conversations. But they also need to hear from local officials that they represent. I mean, I think they need to hear from both directions. So they question what John Ray's telling them, and they just need to talk to their county mayor, county commissioner of what the numbers really look like and how this is going to play out at the local level if they don't already know.
Well, do you have any concerns about, a number of Republicans have been knocked off in primaries and such. Any concerns there that the rural and maybe some of the suburban Republicans that have been with you in the past no longer exist?
Well,
what does that mean going forward in this battle?
It means whatever they want to make it mean, but if I were them, I would be careful about the general election as well, because if you come after our public schools, we're coming after you.
But this is just another example of the disinformation that's driving those decisions. I mean, it's quite clear that this is not a good deal for Tennesseans. And so I think that's part of what this kind of a press conference is about, to let people know in Tennessee that inevitably this is going to be a tax subsidy for rich families that want to send their kids to private school. That's really what this is.
Absolutely. And in addition, this also is proof of the special interest groups that are involved in making sure we can see the voucher system. The fact that rural Republicans who know this particular program is not good for their county can no longer vote how they want to in reference to protecting their citizens, but instead they're voting because they're scared of being primary by the Republican Party, lets you know what this is about. This is not about passing good policy for the constituents that you represent. This is about control of special interest groups and political parties who have a hand over Republican legislators who actually want to do the right thing. They are scared to come out. They are scared to do the right thing. And their voters should know who is actually voting for them and who's not. And they will know that in the general election coming up. This is an election year, and people are watching, more eyes on Tennessee than ever before. And we're going to make sure the people watching know what the impact of this program will be.
Are you guys saying these aren't education freedom scholarships? You don't think that's an appropriate name?
Yeah, I pointed out why it's not educational freedom or school choice.
If you question in any way, shape, or form the intent of this, all you have to do is do the math. I mean, quite clearly, a $7,000 annual subsidy is not going to make it so anybody can afford to go to a private school. So who is going to be able to take advantage of that? It's going to be people who can make up the difference. And so that means middle-class families. That means families that are already sending their kids to private schools who are actually taking advantage of that tax subsidy. And everybody knows that, except for, I think, a lot of Tennesseans think this is about choice. This is not about choice.
And I just want to commend most of the private schools, reputable private schools here in Nashville, Tennessee, who have refused to accept vouchers in the first place. And I think they're going to get that across the state, where most of the reputable private schools are not going to participate in a scam.
There's been quite a lot of turnover in the legislature since the vote in 2019, but I believe there are 14 Republicans who voted against vouchers in 2019 who are still in office. Have either of your caucuses reached out to Republican members who voted against vouchers to start building that coalition?
There have been private conversations.
And then I wondered if each of you could speak to how this could possibly impact the future of high school sports.
Well, your local officials are gonna have to make really tough decisions, and there's decisions at the end of the day. If we keep voluntarily blowing billion-dollar holes in our annual budget that are directly detrimentally impacting our public school systems, local officials are gonna have to decide, are they gonna lay off people? Are they gonna cut teachers? Are they gonna cut high school football? Or are they gonna raise property taxes? At the end of the day, no Tennessee family wins, because they don't want higher property taxes, they don't want higher will taxes, and they sure as hell want their high school football. So it's a no-win situation. This entire scam doesn't benefit anyone, and especially not the students. The data shows that it doesn't benefit students. And you know, I really read this somewhere, and Senator Lamar keeps basically saying this, is, I mean, they might as well give a 50% off coupon to Tiffany's to the wealthiest families in Tennessee before the holidays. I mean, it's going to have the same positive impact on public education. And that's what it is. You're taking Tennessee taxpayers' hard-earned money and just throwing it into the wind for the benefit of a select few.
And it's not just sports. I mean, it's going to be extracurriculars. It's going to be academics will be impacted. I mean, the Republican plan here is to get public education. That's the bottom line. The plan is to completely level public education because the Republicans are tired of being in the business of public education, and they want those tax dollars, our tax dollars, your tax dollars, to go to private entities who would be glad to provide, you know, programs like Hillsdale and things like that to take up the slack.
Well, let's make it clear that the most expensive athletic program for a school system is football. There are other sports that they're required by federal law for equality purposes to provide so many other sports for female athletes. So the most expensive sports program is going to be the one that gets cut because it's not protected, and that's going to happen. And as my Senate colleague said, you know, forget about music teachers, forget about theater programs, forget about things like that in public schools. They're trying to make our public schools look like charter schools where you have no libraries and you have no music program and you have no sports. Or transportation.
Yeah, right.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, everybody.